There are some cases that just make you scratch your head and question life itself. You know, it's just so absurd that you think to yourself, this has to be a hoax. There's just no way that this really happened. The story surrounding the murder of Denise Berry is one of those, and it happened on, of all days, April Fools. Buckle up, you guys. This one is a doozy. On April 1st, 2015, Denise Berry, a loving single mother of two, was on her way to the barber shop in her Mercedes-Benz with her 12-year-old son. It was just another day in Hawthorne, California. That is, until Denise saw something unusual. There was a man. He was rather large, maybe 200 pounds, somewhere around 6'2". He kind of looked like a far more intimidating version of Terry Crews. He was sitting in the passenger seat of a 1994 Cadillac with his feet dangling out the window for some odd reason. They were just hanging out. Denise was perplexed and amused, like most people would be, and so she brought it to her son's attention. The Metro bus driver said, "Look at that, isn't that funny?" Her little boy pointed at the man and laughed. Denise joined in. You guys, they weren't being malicious. Berry and her son weren't eyeballing this guy or anything. It was just an unexpected funny moment. The interaction couldn't have been more than 10 seconds long. The mother and son shared a laugh, and then she quickly focused on getting to her destination. This is where things get shaky. Denise had been driving for miles when she realized that the Cadillac had been trailing behind them the whole time. Clearly, she felt really uneasy about this. Thankfully, there was a Hawthorne patrol officer at Rosecrans and Kornblum. Berry asked the officer for assistance, and he advised her to park in front of his vehicle. I guess the police officer's car would act as a shield. Denise did as she was told, and as she was pulling up, the men in the Cadillac got closer, and while their car was still moving, the man in the passenger seat, the one that they had laughed at, got out of the car toting 2 handguns and shot Berry as well as her son. Police fired right back, killing the gunman, Robert Washington, instantly. Berry's son was injured and would require surgery. Sadly, Denise didn't make it. She was also pronounced dead at the scene. The driver of the Cadillac, Stanley White, and the other passenger, 18-year-old Brandon White, were arrested on suspicions of a conspiracy. Honestly, it shouldn't come as a surprise that when reports surfaced, people were outraged. Hannah commented, "What is the world coming to?" While Sweeney Seeker was of the belief that Robert must have had a death wish. What the is wrong with people? This guy couldn't have been in his right mind. Otherwise, his goofy ass wanted to go to prison for the rest of his life. No one in their right mind gets that upset at someone laughing at them and then shoots them in front of the police. WTF. Tiny Tim placed blame on the victims. This is why I mind my own business and not degrade someone like that. Worse, it was done directly to that man whom they knew nothing about. So you're probably wondering, who was the man who opened fire on a woman and child in broad daylight in front of police? The 38-year-old man and father of 2 from Rialto, California, had several convictions, some dating back to 2002. It's an extensive record. He was 25 at the time of his arrest, and he had been charged with a misdemeanor for driving while under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Just 1 year later, Washington would find himself in even more trouble when he was charged with possession of a firearm by a felon. His criminal activity continued throughout the years, and he eventually ran out of luck and spent some time behind bars. He was released from prison for his latest offense in 2011. Friday, April 3rd, 2015. Family and friends of Denise held a vigil and paid tribute to the late MTA bus driver. "I cry every day. I miss my cousin, man," a relative said. One of Berry's good friends, Nika Curry, mourned and offered the following statement. "It's so horrible. Nowadays, you can't give nobody eye contact. You're scared. You've just got to look straight ahead because you never know what that person is going through. And I feel for that family. It's Easter weekend." To say that Denise was beloved would be an understatement. As cliche as it may sound, she literally lit up whatever room that she was in. Her colleagues adored her, and she enjoyed engaging with them as well. Even some of her regular commuters on her route expressed just how much she meant to them.
It hit me really hard because she's a sweet person, a good friend.
Bus drivers and regular riders on Berry's route came to pay their respects.
Every time I was on the bus with her, she called me son, and I'll say, "Yes, Ma." And she'll just teach me stuff. I don't learn from her though, but I just listen to her.
We thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Berry's family says the show of support provides some comfort in the midst of sorrow.
We love her, but now I know she's really, really looked up to.
This case was the epitome of a senseless crime, and somebody needed to be held responsible, and that someone would be the man behind the wheel of the Cadillac. Bloomington resident Stanley White, husband and father of two, also the nephew of Robert Washington. Charges against the other passenger, Brandon White, were dropped for insufficient evidence. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise, but Stanley also had a criminal history. Shocking, right? Like uncle, like nephew, I guess. On Monday, November 2nd, 2015, White stood trial for murder, and you guys won't believe the disturbing details that were revealed in that courtroom. Apparently, White and Robert had spent 2 days together. Stanley was well aware of his uncle's problem with drugs and alcohol. On April 1st, 2015, after Robert had made eye contact with Denise's son, he instructed Stanley to follow Denise's car. Washington was high on PCP, or angel dust as it's known on the streets. It is an unbelievable, mind-altering drug. It's the same drug that rapper Big Lurch was on when he ripped open his roommate's girlfriend's chest and ate her right lung. PCP is nothing to play with. Stanley argued that even though he did follow Barry, he didn't actually know what Robert had in store for her. Deputy District Attorney Carrie Motter wasn't buying it. She alleged that White saw his uncle waving two guns. Judge Laura Weiss Bernstein believed that prosecutors would have trouble proving this crime should warrant a murder conviction. She would let a jury decide. On January 28th, Stanley pled no contest to assault with a firearm as part of a negotiated deal in the killing of Denise Barry. And on February 8th, White was sentenced to 4 years in prison for his role in her murder. Final thoughts. Anger is a completely justifiable reaction to blatant disrespect. You can call me petty or hostile, but I'm not into turning the other cheek. Some people need to be told where to go and just how far. But this is an extreme case of for every action there's a reaction. I think that pointing and laughing at a total stranger is impolite. It's just bad manners, but it shouldn't serve as an excuse to murder someone. Robert's drug use affected his ability to think rationally, but I think that there's way more to unpack here. Let me make this clear. I didn't know Washington, and I certainly don't know Stanley personally, but I do know their type. There's a subset of men who are hyper-vigilant about maintaining a certain level of respect among other men. The fear of being labeled a punk or a bitch is so threatening that sometimes they go to great lengths to ensure that no one dare think that they can get away with reducing their perceived high value. I think that Robert's nephews hyped him up. They wanted to put Denise in her supposed place. It's a sad and unfortunate story.